here, this is a zoom shot. What is a zoom shot? By definition, a zoom shot is a shot where the distance between the center of the lens and the film gate changes. But how can one be sure about a shot if it's a zoom shot or a dolly shot? And a dolly shot is when the camera is moving forward. Well, the trick is to look at the footage and see if there's any kind of parallax existence. As you can see in this shot, there is no parallax. So that tells me that the camera was not translating forward, and rather it was the change of relations between the lenses and the film gate. If this shot was a dolly shot, there would be an evidence of parallax between the foreground, the middle ground, and the background. We also see that the lens is distorting the footage. If you take a close look at the apple boxes that we have here, you'll see that it's not a straight line. This kind of distortion is known as a pincushion distortion. And yet there's another type of distortion that is called barrel distortion. So in order to fix this distortion, I can go to the Create, and I have an Undistort node. In the Undistort node, here you can see by the grid that I have here, that there is some very minor distortion through the lens. So I'm clicking on a new line, my grid disappears, and this line is going to be a straight line down. Now we can clearly see that the boxes have distortion, so I need to tell pftrack how much of distortion I have by clicking again on this line, creating a new point, and moving this line to where the distortion occurs. The more lines that I introduce, the better my result is going to be. And now I'm going to click on a new line, and I can point out another point of distortion right over here. Very minor, but it still exists. In order for the Undistort node to work after drawing these lines, I'm going to have to click on Solve. So the result I got is negative 0.129. Now I can go and click on User Track and track this footage as a regular footage. All the rules apply. I need to track solid points, and I need to define with A trackers the background, middle ground, and foreground. Well, at this point, you're probably also asking, what happens now if you distorted the footage during the production pipeline? Well, I have to notify the compositors and the rest of the people who work on this shot that I went ahead and I undistorted the footage. And then the compositor is going to use the number that I used to undistort, the negative 0.129, to distort the footage back to its original status. And plus, the compositor is also going to use that number to distort the rest of the elements inside, which would be probably some CG elements in the shot. I'm going to use the user track to track this. So I'm going to stop the video here and track this, and we'll be right back. I used 10 trackers to track those certain features that I have in this shot. I have this box in the foreground, the box here in the middle ground, where the actor rests his head, and I have also the trackers in the background. Now I can use the camera solver in order to solve this shot, but this time I'm going to eliminate the translation because once again this is a zoom shot. The camera was not moving anywhere. So I'm going to stop this, and I'm going to create camera solver, and in the camera solver I'm making sure here that I put a check mark on variable focal, telling pftrack that the focal changes from frame to frame. Translation, I'm going to move to none because there is no movement of the camera. But I do know from being on set that when the camera operator activated the zoom, the camera tilted down a tad because of the pressure the camera operator put on the zoom button. So the rotation, it's going to be high smooth. Notice that this area here is not ghosted anymore because of the check mark on the variable focal. I'm going to say high smooth on the focal length as well. So I'm going to solve this, and there it is. So how does it look in 3D space? If I switch here to the 3D space view, I notice that there's my camera, and see what happens to the camera. It's not moving anywhere. It's not rotating anywhere. There might be some very minor rotations on it. but the zoom changes. Start off with a very wide frustum. This area here is known as a frustum, which means the zoom lens was very close to the film gate. And as the shot progresses and there's animation on my focal length, the zoom lens goes away from the film gate and the frustum shrinks. If I look at the curve editor here, there are constant keyframes on my X, Y, and Z translation. Rotation is very minor. We can barely see any kind of changes in here. Very small changes. But the focal length itself now has a nice graph of animation. At this point, I can go ahead after the camera solve and select a point where I can put my orient scene node. If I go to create, orient scene, let's see, let me just move this. I can select this tracker that I have here. I'm going to click on marquee, select this guy, set origin, and by using my rotation, we can definitely see the lens distortion right there. And now I can export this and take us into Maya. In Maya, I would probably do a regular set fit while I'm all the way zoomed in, because then I see the apple boxes that the actor rests on the best. In the next lesson, we're going